Welcome to StoryUp. This is a long-form space for honest conversations about stories. The ones we live inside, the ones we carry for years, and the ones that continue shaping us even after they become books. I'm Dr. Marina Rivera, founder of Full Circle Press. I work closely with authors at many stages of their story's life, before a story is written, while it's being shaped, and after it's released into the world. StoryUp exists because I believe that stories don't begin or end with a book. They shape how we see ourselves, how we make meaning, and how we move through the world, often long before they're written and long after they're shared. Here, I reflect on what it means to steward stories with care, responsibility, faith, and discernment, sometimes on my own and sometimes in conversations with authors whose stories are already out in the world. If you're holding a story that matters or living with the one that's still unfolding, you're in the right place. Hi, friends. Okay, I am back for another video, and today I want to talk to the person who has been saying, I'm going to write my book. And if you've been saying this for at least a year, maybe 5, maybe 10, like not saying this casually and not like a nice someday idea, but the kind that keeps coming back, the kind that taps you on the shoulder during quiet moments, the kind of like nudge that shows up in prayer, in journaling, in conversations with others, in just these nudges that you just quite like that you just can't quite shake. The book you keep talking about, the message you keep circling, the story that keeps outlining, like you just keep outlining it in your head in the shower while you're walking. And yet here we are. The book is still not written, or it's still not finished, or it's still not in your hands. And so if that's you, then I do believe that this video just might be for you as well. And I want to speak to you today without any pressure, but with clarity and also with some honesty, because I've walked alongside enough authors to recognize what I would consider a pretty consistent pattern. And I've been able to walk alongside enough authors with both compassion and precision to be able to say that you are not behind because you are lazy. First of all, I don't believe there is anything as behind. I think you are right where you need to be, but I think this mental tape we can play, like I'm behind because I'm lazy, I would say no. I would also say you're not stuck because you're incapable or you have some great like lack that needs to be filled. And you're not delayed because you missed your moment, but you might be stuck because you're trying to carry a calling without any sort of container for it. So let me explain what I mean by this. Most people think that book writing is a motivation problem. So I hear a lot of people say, like, I just need more discipline, or I need a better schedule, or I need to wake up earlier, or I need to want it more. But after coaching a lot of authors from idea to finished book, I can tell you that motivation is actually rarely the issue, because like it's an easy thing to say, but I think what it actually is calling without structure. I think that is the issue. Desire without process is the issue. Vision without pathway is the actual issue. Because a book is not written by inspiration alone, it's built by structure, support, and what I would call sustained obedience. And that word obedience, I do believe matters more than productivity here in this conversation. Because I think many of you don't just want to write a book, you feel assigned to write a book. And I do believe there's a difference. So a want to write a book would say like, oh, this would be nice. But a calling to write a book says this will not leave me alone. A want disappears when life gets busy. A calling keeps resurfacing no matter what. And so when a calling resurfaces, but no progress is made, I do believe that something painful can happen inside, because it can turn into this like quiet guilt. So it's not a loud guilt. It's just like this internal ache of, I should be further along. I should have started. I should have finished. But the thing that we know about guilt is guilt doesn't motivate us. Guilt actually has the opposite effect of motivation. Guilt can paralyze us. So then what do people do? What do we do as human beings? I think we often can reach for things that feel productive, but that are actually safer than writing. So we might buy another planner or download another template or take another course or research another publishing platform. We might rename the book, outline it again, re-outline it. And so it's movement that is adjacent to writing, but actually isn't writing. And I think that we do this not because we're dishonest or like even distracted necessarily, but because preparation can actually feel safer than the exposure it takes to write what we've been called to write. Drafting is vulnerable, but research is protective. Like if I research another thing, I don't have to actually be vulnerable inside of that thing. Writing the words on the page is confronting, but planning the pages, planning the writing can actually be comforting. But one of the things that God has been impressing upon me very recently and very like we've been impressing upon it upon me for a long time, but this impression is becoming increasingly loud, which means that I better pay attention, right? It's this idea that um, that we're not here to live a comfortable life. We're here to live a surrendered life, a called life. And so if you've been living in constant preparation mode, I'm not here to shame you. I've been there more often than not, but I am here to hopefully gently interrupt that pattern because the book is not going to move forward when preparation replaces actual progress. So I hope that you find this to be a little relieving, but also a little confronting. No planner, no prompt deck, no perfect schedule, no new tool is going to write your book for you. It can inspire you, it can help you get the words on the page, but it's not going to actually do the deep thinking and the work that's required. But that does not mean that you're meant to do it alone. So I do think that a lot of writers fall into what I would call this false binary, like either I should do this myself or I must not be called. But not only is that not true, it doesn't really make sense. And I don't want to get up on a soapbox and stay there for too long, but I think something a little wild is happening in like the author space, which is like, oh, well, I should just be able to do this all myself. But needing support does not disqualify calling. I think it actually confirms stewardship. Like, we don't say that pastors shouldn't have mentors, and we wouldn't say that leaders shouldn't have coaches or athletes shouldn't have trainers. So, why do we think that writers would be the exception? Because I think that books are not only written, they're shepherded into the world, they're stewarded. And I think that the calling to write the book is actually the seed, but then the system within which this book takes shape can become the soil. I think support, whether it be through an author coach or a small group coaching program, like a one-on-one author coach, a small group coaching program, a community, that's the water. And then the structure can actually become the sunlight. And if I want to take this metaphor one step further, like seeds don't grow in air, they grow in environments. And I think a lot of people have seeds for books, but few of us actually take the time and invest the resources to build the environments that are needed for the books to fully take shape. But the good news is that this is not a problem or a challenge that can't be fixed. It is fixable. It's not magically fixable, but I think it is faithfully and responsibly fixable. So while we're here, I also want to normalize something else. Most people also think that writing a book requires large, uninterrupted time blocks. And I love a good uninterrupted block of time. I love a retreat. I love a sabbatical. I love a cleared calendar. But most finished books are written in the crevices of time. And many of the authors, if not most of the authors that I work with, have very busy lives where the opportunity to like retreat for a long period of time just isn't possible. But if we look at 20 minutes early in the day, 30 minutes that is just protected, 45 minutes where we choose to write as opposed to do something else, these aren't perfect conditions, but they're chosen conditions. And if you're going to wait for life to calm down, I do believe that you'll be waiting indefinitely. I think we all will be. Life does not necessarily clear everything out of the way, but I do think that it can rearrange itself. We can rearrange things in our lives. We can pray that God would give us clarity on how to rearrange things. And so instead of asking, when will I have time? I think the question is actually, where will I make space? So this is a different question, but I also think it carries with it different power, because big callings in anything, whether it's book writing or anything else, are often carried by small, repeated acts of faithfulness. So not big emotional surges, but steady steps. And so I want to say this as clearly and as lovingly as possible. If God placed a message in you, He didn't intend it to live and die only inside you. I'm going to say that one more time. If God placed a message in you, He didn't intend it to live and die only inside you. I believe that messages are given for movement, stories are given for stewardship, and insight is given for impact. So, not performance impact, like I'm going to do this thing, get the gold trophy or the gold star, but for people impact. Because I don't think a book is just a project, I think it can be provision for someone else. Your book could be someone else's clarity, someone else's courage, the path through which God uses to give someone else their healing. And so I think that's why this matters. Not because being an author is impressive or comes with some title, but because it's like an outward metric of obedience. And I think the power actually comes in the obedience. And so I'm going to ask you a question. What have you been calling not the right time that could actually be fear? And what is the fear? Is it fear of being seen? Is it fear of not being good enough? Fear of getting it wrong? Because fear often dresses up or puts on this mask of timing wisdom. So discernment says wait with clarity. I'm not saying waiting isn't ever the right thing to do, because God calls us so often to wait on His timing. But if we're waiting with clarity, that's discernment. If we're waiting without any sort of movement or any sort of discernment, I would say that's probably fear. And only one type of waiting, generally, in my experience, produces fruit. And so if this is landing for you at all, if anything I'm saying is like, oh, maybe that could be true, good. Because I think that recognition can actually be the next faithful step in momentum. So I always like to have a next right step, and I'm going to challenge you with this next right step. It's not a giant plan, it's a simple step, is just to decide that your book is no longer a someday idea, but a current assignment. And what happens when we make things current assignments is a current assignment gets scheduled, it gets supported, and then it gets finished. When I used to teach university, my students, if they looked at the syllabus before the start of the semester, those assignments were just like a someday idea. But once a semester started and that clock started ticking, they became real. And guess what happened? They had to get scheduled, they had to get supported, and they had to get finished if they were going to, do what they were intended to do, right? So I think that dreams can sometimes drift, and drifting is not always a bad thing. But when we turn a dream into an assignment, assignments move. And so on this channel, StoryUp, part of what I'm here to do is to help you move from calling to clarity to completion. And my hope is that, I think a lot of you watching this are probably writing books, but my hope is also that even if you're not writing a book, what I say here will be transferable to another area of your life. Because this isn't about like just manuscript completion. It's about completion of anything meaningful. But when we talk about books, we're not just talking about manuscript completion. We're talking about like book in your hand completion. Drafts matter, but a book draft on your computer isn't going to change anybody's life except maybe your own. Books in readers' hands change lives. And so if this resonates with you and you haven't subscribed to this channel here, I invite you to do so. Stay, come back, walk with me here. And if you are carrying a book calling, put the word book into the comments. Not for any sort of like hype, but just as a step of alignment so that I can cheer you on, so I can stand in prayer for you, so that others can cheer you on and pray for and with you. And I want you to know that you're not alone and you are not too late. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.